Hello friends, welcome to episode 82 of Storyteller Conclave. This is a show all about helping you run the best tabletop role-playing game that you can, whether you're a new storyteller or dungeon master learning the craft, or an experienced storyteller looking to take your game to the next level. I am Sarah.
And I'm Rob.
How we doing, Rob?
I don't know.
There's a lot of cursing and emergency button
stuff.
Pressing from me over here. No, I had the show sheet pulled up, and right as you were about to cue me in from the music, my show sheet just went completely blank.
Yes.
And so I had to, go out and come back into it and stuff like that. So I was panicking a little bit there. I apologize for that, folks. But we are here. We are together. We are here for our weekly online therapy session.
So true. It's so true.
And with a bit of a Thanksgiving show. It's tomorrow's Thanksgiving here in the United States. If you're not from the United States, this is a holiday that we celebrate here in the U.S. That we give thanks for the various good things in our life.
Yeah, we'll get more into this because we're going to be talking about festivals and holidays in games of how they can change over time and what that means to the people that you interact with. Because it has. Thanksgiving's changed quite a bit. It has.
I think, as we've become more socially conscious as of a society and such like that, I think it's a little less focused on new settlers doing horrible things to
artificial heritage.
Yeah, artificial heritage. I think is the greatest way of putting that. Yes.
Whoever wrote the history books are the ones who are talking about that point of heritage.
Yes.
But it's also done just in societal norms. Like, what does it mean to have Thanksgiving in a atomic family? What's that concept? What does it look like? What did it look like in the 50s versus now?
Right.
And all that has changed. I mean, in our country, it's really not that old.
No, it's really not.
So in the grand scheme of things, you can kind of imagine how much that would change. So we'll get into that. But I would like to start off with our own thanks.
Okay.
That we're giving.
That's a great place to start. Yeah.
I don't mind starting if you don't. Just because
You go ahead.
I'm the one who brought it up, and if you can think about things while you're doing it.
Yeah, you're right.
I am thankful that this is our weekly therapy session.
Yeah.
I mean, we call it a show, but in a lot of ways it's a therapy session. And I'm thankful for you. You've kept me going through some of the weirder stuff on this and reminded me that I do know what I'm doing on occasion. And that we have, our digital guests, our friends who join us on live chat and through the Discord, and friends who message us sometimes because they would rather instant message us than talk on the Discord and send us little kibits and things. And I love all of that because it makes Wednesdays worthwhile every week. And right now during this pandemic, it's been really hard.
Yeah, it really has been.
Do you want to give one and then we'll go back?
Yeah, sure. I also I'm very thankful for this show and for you. I think mainly I tend to drift a lot.
Yeah.
And so having this weekly show is kind of a weekly reminder of what I do enjoy in life. Having obviously our therapy session, to have someone to just kind of talk to, and I've talked a bit about my own struggle with depression and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so it's helped me just get out of the house and have some FaceTime, and that's actually very valuable for someone with who struggles with depression.
And I'm thankful that we haven't been sick, that we've been able to do this, we've been able to keep things going to make it feel normal for people. I've gotten that response from some of our listeners that they're happy that we've had this kind of heartbeat out here, that our voices sound normal. When we were sick, we separated, we still did a show over Discord so we could have it. But, for the most part, we both work at home. We have very tight circles that we keep, so we've been able to keep this going. And, thanks to the rules that we have in our state about communications, it allows us to keep the show going, which is really nice. But we're very careful about everything we get. And it's been really nice that we have our listeners supporting us in that sense, both from the Patreon level as well as just our Discord listeners who join us and share with us their ideas and the stories that they have. We say it every time, our friends and family who help us through this and who support us and like the show, which is always interesting. My mother listens, which is interesting. I didn't know this.
Oh, really?
She catches the show on occasion. So,
Mom.
Yeah. So I'm very happy about that. And I think the other thing that really, I think, to be thankful for, especially this year, is all of the wonderful tools that are out there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're going to talk about it in the show. We're really going to give them mad props. But I have to say, like, every time we find something, it's someone's passion that they've put out there to help people be able to stay connected. Whether it's Discord or Foundry or the Tabletop Simulator, all of these things have helped remove those barriers and allowed us to play our games and be close and have that social interaction that feels somewhat normal, like a flavor of normal. You know, it's like astronauts in space, like they see the Earth, but they're not connected to it. But sometimes they have something with them, a guitar, a toy, something that they brought up, that one little bit of weight they could carry that reminds them and reconnects them and allows them to reconnect with everyone else.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, I want to also give my shout out to the creators of all these great technologies and such like that, for putting in all that blood, sweat, and tears. A lot of the resources out there where people are doing this for really nothing more than, you know, some Patreon money or even just giving it out for free.
Yeah.
To the community. There's a lot of just free resources out there between maps and all the people who, we've gotten into using Foundry VTT for our games, and all the people who make those modules.
Oh, God, yeah.
You know, there's a few of them who have Patreons, but then a few of them are just like, I just cooked this up. It's just some code.
Yeah.
You know, just use it for free.
Yeah. Like I had the time and this sounded like something neat to do, so I'm doing it. And then they're really listening to the communities that are behind them on their own Discords and Patreon channels to get better at what it is that people want.
Yeah, and so their blood, sweat, and tears is facilitating our gaming and our togetherness, and facilitating us, obviously in a roundabout way, continuing to do this podcast for you guys. So, it continues to us gaming, gives us something else to talk about, keeps us sharp, so we can share that with you. Yeah,
and we'll keep it up as best we can for the next year.
I did have a listener reach out to me very recently too, who wanted to actually thank me for being as open as I was about my struggles with depression.
No, it's been really cool.
Said that this listener said that this had really helped them through some of their tough times, knowing that it just at the very least they weren't alone. Yeah, and that hearing someone talk openly about their own struggles helped them identify some of their own. Yeah, and so. I want to say I'm thankful for the togetherness that we can all share. I'm thankful that I was able to help this person. And, just as always, like I said to you in person, I hope that, hope you're doing good. Yeah.
And we know good is a relative term. Yeah. Like good is today. And if good is every Wednesday, that is fantastic. Exactly. And we are glad to be part of that journey and helpful.
Some days good is I'm feeling fine. Some days good is I managed to take a shower. Yep. And, take your victories. Yep. Take your victories where they are, because you're fighting a war. Yep. You're absolutely fighting a war, and as long as you're doing something, you're strong, you're good. Yep.
So we have festivals and games. And celebrations
in games. Now,
and holidays.
Such a cool topic.
It really is. Like we kind of thought we were going to just be able to breeze through this, and then we started writing about it, and we realized we had a lot more to talk about.
Yeah, well, because I think
which we always do, I guess.
It's one of those things you kind of take for granted. But in our world, in the real world, a lot of our culture and such like that is based around different holidays and stuff like that, whether they be religious holidays, cultural holidays, national holidays, things like that. There's a lot of things that kind of come together and combine to, help us celebrate being alive as people in the cultures that we are. And it can do the exact same thing for your world building in a game.
I mean, there are things that are very symbolic culturally. We have our Groundhog's Day, which is just a symbolism of coming into spring or not. I know that Germany has its winter markets. It's Christmas markets. It's not really Christmas, but it happens through a season, through a couple weeks, and that is a turn for them as well to show the time. But it's also a lot of people look very much forward to it, and they've had to protect it over time and make sure that it's there. I know in Ann Arbor, which is not far from us, we have, Art Fair, which is a kind of a festival unto itself that brings
absolutely
hundreds of thousands of people into Ann Arbor to wander around and buy art and stuff. And there's art and food and all kinds of things that come into that. So sometimes it's a community thing. Sometimes it's a societal thing. Sometimes it's a national thing. Sometimes it's a historical thing. And all of these can come into play to help your setting or your theme or your feel kind of mix a little bit and feel a little more rich.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of the cream
that
goes into things.
It really
adds a little thickness. It adds a little more richness to it.
God, you know what I was just thinking of, actually? You and your wife got me playing Stardew Valley.
I'm sorry, not sorry.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's a double-edged sword right there. But one of the things that even makes that game really great is that they sprinkled some festivals into the time. So you need to worry about when the big harvest festival is coming in in the fall and stuff like that, and have your crops ready. You need to know who you're going to ask to dance at the spring flower festival.
Yeah.
And it's little things to look forward to, and they're a technically complete waste of a day, but I'll tell you, they are the most charming things in that entire game,
Yeah. I mean, it's funny to say this, but Black Friday is coming up on Friday.
Yeah.
And for the United States, for our non-U.S. people, you probably know of Black Friday as this mad rush to stores for these ridiculous sales and giveways and things like that.
This year there won't be.
Well, you never know. You seriously never know. I do not discount that whole crazy group of people who need their discounts, and people are going to do it online, and we have Cyber Monday that follows it up usually. Yep. But it's happening days early now and days late and things. But could you imagine doing that in a fantasy world?
Oh God.
Could you imagine a Black Friday in a fantasy realm?
Oh my God. Yeah, I've been saving the gold from our last 3 adventures because they're having a Black Friday sale down at the blacksmith. I need that +1 armor, and I need that shield of repelling.
Yep. Yeah, and there's guards.
And I need that +2 flame brand. They're having a fire sale on +2 flame brands. Yeah. No pun intended.
Yeah. I mean, it would be funny to do it, but in the right setting, it would be hilarious.
It would be great.
Yeah.
There's a setting that was actually put out for D&D 3rd edition called X-Crawl.
Okay.
Which was the Extreme Dungeon Crawling League.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And it was all basically almost like an American Gladiators WWF or WWE sort of style, but it's all dungeon crawling, professional dungeon crawlers, and you had people who were rock star dungeon creators.
Yeah.
Who would come in this one's this character who's made this dungeon, and they specialize in traps.
Yeah.
This is gonna be an especially deadly trap one. But I just imagine in that world, when you've got the sort of mix of pop culture, media, and D&D all at the same time, you'd have exactly that,
Mm-hmm. And it's things like that add feeling. That add texture, that add spice. It is not the story. It is an element that sits around it that adds that flavor. Mm-hmm. So you have your good celebrations, your victories, your life harvests, your moments of joy. You have your bad celebrations, remembrances of war, or of tragedies, or cataclysms, or the fall of something that was important. Mm-hmm. The death of someone important. That marked something, and then the ugly, which is where you have to sacrifice to protect your town from a certain demon, or a consequence day that every year, if if the harvest isn't reaped by this point, the fires come in and destroy it, kind of a thing. Right. Or worse ever, more contemporary stuff like The Purge, the day where everyone can do whatever they want. So it basically turns into a murder fest. These are all technically celebrations and festivals. Mm-hmm. So on all those scales, and all of those, elicit a different feel for the world. Like, I don't have to tell you anything about my fantasy world and tell you that there's a Black Friday sale on Friday at my blacksmith, and you already have a feeling for what that world is like.
Yes.
You don't even have to think about that.
Yes,
and
exactly.
that could just be a conversation between the barkeep and a guy at the bar who just came in with who just ran into town sweating with a ton of a bag full of gear, and that bag full of gear is actually a bag of bags. He's got extra bags, and he's just like, okay, did I miss Black Friday? No, it's this Friday, man. You got 3 days. Sweet. Your whole group was like, excuse me, what's going on here? And that sets up a whole ball in motion. No different than you come into a town and there's banners up and people dancing and wearing colorful looks, strolling around with pigs, and you're like, what's this? Oh, it's the Great Pig Festival. Oh, I'm unaware, but now it's a joyous occasion,
that explains the pigs.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that one of the more important things to remember though about your holidays, obviously, is they should fit the setting as part of your world building. And this is what, like we said, one of the best ways to enhance your world building is to pepper these things in, because these are the little things that bring your setting to life.
Yeah.
So things to keep in mind, if your kingdom was formed when two smaller kingdoms came together,
sure,
as part of your world building. Well, the date that treaty was signed, that's probably a unification day celebration, where we celebrate the East meeting the West. Yeah. Davian and Steiner joining together as into the Federated Commonwealth.
Right.
Yeah. That is probably a holiday, so you can look at your own world building and just find those important parts where there were historical moments and just drop them in the calendar as some sort of an appropriate festival.
Yep.
So they practically write themselves right there.
Yep.
If you've gone through those steps of world building, at least,
Right.
Farming communities and stuff like that. A lot of agrarian societies mark their holidays around their harvests. Typically, historically at least, and a lot of sci-fi or a lot of fiction. So you're probably going to have some sort of harvest festivals and stuff like that. Maybe a planting festival in the spring, a harvest festival in the fall, things like that. Holidays can also be, should be, I should say, specific to their location. So the same holiday you have might be celebrated completely different, and you can see that a lot in our real world. We don't celebrate, Christmas or Yule or whatever the same way over here that we do in, say, Europe or in Russia or in, Asia. Sometimes they don't even have those because certain holidays, no matter how secularized they have become in recent days, have religious origins to them, and they just never caught on in other parts of the globe. You know? So keeping in mind that, if you've got enough world building to have, different nations or different provinces or something like that, that holiday may look different to different people.
Oh yeah, I mean that unification day for that one world, those countries may be completely shamed in another because maybe they weren't accepted. There should have been a third alliance there, and the other groups thought that they walked away from the table.
It's
when
called
in fact,
Betrayal Day.
Yeah,
and they hang wickermen in effigy of
that's
the
right. At the end of the day, they burned them.
Right. Trying them in effigy for the treason of the other two kingdoms.
And everybody has copies of the writ that that shows all of the things that they felt were wrong in the deal for them.
The children beat piñatas that are shaped like the king of the other country.
Yep, exactly.
And get candy out of them, but really they're beating him.
Yeah, no, it's completely. And everyone gets 10 coins. Because it was the 10 gold that they offered for one of the islands. They're like, you'll have to give us this island for 10 gold. Or an island
for 10 gold.
For 10 gold? No.
Yeah.
And so everybody has 10 gold that they offer. So everything's 10 gold. You know, it's almost in jest of it. Oh, how much is this bread? It's 10 gold.
Well, it's a banana, Michael. How much could it cost? $10?
Exactly. So, you can always throw in things like that, but I think holidays are a good way where things have very different meaning where from one group to another.
Yeah.
And you could easily do that. I mean, there's nothing to say that the group of elves who go and extinguish the lives of murderous orcs who trample through every year is one religious holiday, whereas the other side is just like, we literally migrate during the winter from the mountains where it's going to be frozenly cold to the plains, and you murder our people along the way. That's literally, so we have to do this for survival, and you stop that every year. Like,
yep.
And some of us don't make it, so they call it the thinning. Oof. You know.
So
again,
on that cheerful genocidal note,
we go right to mood. So
yes.
Bringing a festival into your story can also change the mood of the story. Mm-hmm. It can change that whole feel and where things are going from, is your holiday a happy holiday? Is it a sad holiday? Is it a holiday that flips moods based on people? Are there people who are deniers about the holiday? Mm-hmm. No, we didn't actually, help the people of this land. We slaughtered them and enslaved them, in our camps here. Like, get that guy out of here. This is just he's just ranting about history. When, in fact, there is a little truth to that,
Yeah,
so, what did happen to all the common people of this land? And why do we paint ourselves green? Where did the gobos go? They were just so accepting of us, and now they're all missing.
But the important thing to note, though, is that your holiday is going to dictate the mood immediately of that game session, of that maybe multiple sessions spent during that holiday. So if you want, a little bit of fear and suspicion mixed into your hope on the surface, but if you scratch underneath, you get a little bit of dirt. Go with what Rob was just saying.
Yeah.
Maybe there are people talking about how the holiday is a sham, and providing some evidence for it.
Yeah.
If you want just to be, uplifting and thankful, and especially, it's great for like a mood shift after having a really dire leg of your campaign. If your characters have come back from like a really tough battle and maybe someone got really critically wounded or killed along the way, something like that, you want to swing the mood right back up, throw a festival in.
Yeah.
They come back, everybody's cheering, there's garlands hanging from every street light.
Yep. You can even have turnaround plots come out of a festival. I mean, you can have a Scrooge character who gets turned around and basically makes it a better time. You've got situations where maybe the players are directly involved in the festival and what happens, and that could turn the whole feel of the festival around. Or you use it as a turning point in your plot where literally everything's been going great. They come into this town and suddenly there's a problem.
Yeah.
Like, you guys made a poor decision of like, oh, we just destroyed this camp up the hill because it was a problem up in the foothills. Coming down into the farmlands, they're very happy for when they show up, bringing the water and ice that they need for the winter festival. And you're like, oh, they were friends with those orcs, and they're not going to be showing up. Oh, boy.
Oh, we're the jerks.
Yeah. Okay. So how do we solve this problem now?
Right.
And it's a turn point.
Or consequently, you can also have some really interesting juxtaposition. It doesn't have to. You don't have to have your story fit the mood by correlating with it. You don't have to tell a happy story because there's a happy festival going on. Maybe you can juxtapose the two against each other. So it may be more difficult to tell a happy and uplifting story during the dirge of fallen heroes. But perhaps that can heighten the happiness that you find in it. Because it is such a sad and somber affair where you're remembering, singing sad songs to the dead who have gone before you. Maybe finding that little bit of light in something like a holiday dedicated to death and remembrance.
Yeah.
Is, maybe that's where you're going to find the happiness in your story.
Cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about a few of these. So we've given a couple examples, but like, starting things out lighthearted. Let's just go right to it because we've had enough of this. You can always have the PCs come into a festival, and it doesn't have to be part of plot, but it could give you a break as a storyteller, where Maybe the festival is just a joyous celebration for when the town fended off orcs.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have the kids, run after these, scarecrows that are made to look with burlap sacks on them, look like orcs.
Yeah.
And they have to beat them with wooden swords. And there's sweet treats that are available for sale.
Street food is always a thing.
Oh, yeah.
Street food is always a thing.
Smells, flavors,
yes.
new drinks.
Yes.
Those types of things are just littered through the story as the players are moving through this scene.
I want to cash in my one obligatory Critical Role mention during the podcast here to say that Matthew Mercer does a wonderful job at this.
Mm-hmm.
There was a part I want to say early on in the second campaign where they actually just had a big festival, and like the entire episode was just them playing games in the town square and just kind of getting to know their characters through just these random interactions. These were kind of like those one-off sort of bespoke encounters we were talking about. And so having fun games for them to play, having fun treats that were thematic to the so you might find like it something like a green sweet tasting fruit that is on a stick.
Yeah.
Because it's street food. It always has to be on a stick, so you can
Right.
carry it around with you. And they might call it an impaled orc.
Yes.
And
then you've got like your more thicker meals that might come with it, or even things that could be taken with you, like jerky type things and stuff like that, so that the players can have them later.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing to say that they can't wrap these things up, and now they've got something to carry with them from this festival.
Yeah, exactly.
That could come up later in story and adds role play and flavor.
And to be fair, it doesn't have to come up in the story.
It doesn't.
It can just be details,
right?
Just be fun little things.
Mm-hmm. But you're adding role-playing elements out of this that are fun and light, and again, just sprinkled in like a good spice.
Yeah.
That is there to add to the ambiance and give them a feeling of the world. It is creating a mirror of what they should be seeing and reminding them what the world is like.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
The other great thing about festivals is that they offer great role playing opportunities for cross society events.
Oh yeah.
So oftentimes, we talk about like in 7th Sea or even in a lot in Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that.
Shadowrun's got those societal bonds as well.
Oh yeah.
Very much
even
so.
all the way up into Shadowrun. I mean, I think just about most every game you're going to play, you're going to have some sort of a societal
tier
class system almost.
Yeah.
Where you're going to have haves and have-nots. You're going to have nobles and peasants, or you're going to have corporate bigwigs versus street rat shadowrunners.
Yeah.
One way or another, though, you're going to have your haves and your have-nots, and so a lot of times you end up where you need a scene that involves the haves interacting with the have-nots, but you've only got maybe like one bard in your group who can rub elbows with nobles. Or maybe one person in your 7th Sea game took the noble background, and everybody else are, peasants who have risen up and, seized greatness.
Yeah, I mean, they might have some accolades, but they're still just fighters.
Exactly. Or your street rat Shadowrunners, nobody knows a corporate bigwig.
They don't have any sponsors to get into these parties or events.
Exactly.
Or, to get into to any of the clubs.
So if you can't get your group into a high society ball, what you can do is get them into a festival.
Yep.
Because festivals are celebrated by everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And like you mentioned, there might even be like a masquerade ball.
Yep.
Where the nobles wear masks and essentially pretend to be commoners, and the commoners can wear masks and pretend to be nobles.
Yep.
And that's all on the level for just for that day.
Mm-hmm.
And they can all converse with each other and interact with each other without shame or station or anything like that getting in the way.
Yep.
And it can be a great moment for everybody. Knox in the Box has entered the chat.
It's good to see you, Knox. Another thing that I like about that is that it also gives high society a chance to bend down.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have moments where your antagonist or even other characters who may be stationed around them who couldn't normally speak to the players now can, and might invite them to something like that. Lastly, you can use it as an entry point where, like a good example is in the movie Coco, where he literally has to go and see someone, but the only way to get into that party is to either have a ticket or win your way in. And so he ends up going into a contest to win his way to get in. And that opens that door to another place. And then once he's there, he's just with everybody else, kind of a thing. And so it changes the scope and gives that availability. And so festivals add that flavor and that fun. So,
yeah, I think that's a great idea of having that.
Another thing I was going to throw, I totally forgot about this. Festivals love to bring others. So foreigners, dignitaries, merchants, and caravans. There's nothing like that in 7th Sea where, yeah, merchant town is always going to have people in port, but if I've got it like the capital and there's a festival going on, some of the finest ships are going to show up. Some of the greatest captains are going to show up. They're going to dress. They're going to have their crew. Their ship is going to be sparkling. It's going to be coming, as best that it can with the best sails it has on it. And it's a show. And everybody's in this pageantry, but it also brings out caravans and merchants and things that wouldn't normally be there. So you can use this as a gateway for in D&D to have maybe rarer things show up, odd things show up, unique things show up.
Not only just items, but even just rumor mill from foreign places. If the PCs need to hear about maybe a war going on or something like that in a foreign land, having these traveling merchants come in during a holiday and letting them know about it's a great time to do that.
Yep. Yeah, I mean it puts into play things that you need as a storyteller, but also gives your players access to a breadth of things. There's nothing to say that you couldn't start off a game with a festival. You couldn't open a 0 session, and that's where all your players get in, and that's why they're all from different places and different walks of life in a very simple setting. So stepping into a plate is not a bad way to go, because it, again, adds flavor, gives people a feel for the world, and allows them to have an edge.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, speaking of plot hooks, so we mentioned earlier that not every festival is going to be a good celebration.
Correct.
Sometimes you have, like he said, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The bad ones are typically just like remembrances of defeats at war. Like typically, like our Memorial Day would go under bad celebration because we're remembering people who died. In wars.
Solace.
Yeah, it's a somber celebration, but it is a celebration and a remembrance.
Yeah, I mean, you might have that for reoccurrences of grand funerals, like the day that the Hierophant passed, or the day that the country was went into civil war,
right?
Things like that.
Then you've got your ugly festivals, and those are the ones where they're there to like ward off the darkness.
Yeah. I mean, they still on the surface may feel like a festival, but the heart of it is that everyone is scared because they know something lurks in the forests, and this is what keeps it away.
It's almost in and of itself almost a ritual.
Yeah, very much so.
To ward away the darkness. And that ritual may take place in, bringing out bushels of apples and beer and stuff like that, and celebrating in the town square with the lights on as bright as you possibly can.
And all the loudest music you can muster.
Loudest music, because if you don't, the darkness lurks in and snatches you away.
Right. And that's what they teach when maybe it's really the darkness outside the walls eating the pigs you left for them and nobody wants to hear it.
Right. So if you're warding away the dark forest spirits with with sacrificial pigs every year, that's a great plot hook, because I guarantee you can't drop that in front of most adventuring groups without them going, wait, I'm sorry, the dark forest, what?
Yeah.
And someone drawing a sword going, we'll take care of it.
No, I got a +1 longsword. Let's go handle this situation.
What do you mean that the dark spirits of the forest come in every year and eat your pigs?
Yeah.
Well, we do. We just have to put them out there because they do this. So you've got a great opportunity there for a plot hook, and then you've got some great opportunity for some intrigue behind it. So some obvious questions with just this off the top of our head scenario. Why pigs?
Yeah.
Why not cows or sheep or
maybe it's something that's very accessible for them.
Maybe it's accessible, or maybe it's specific.
It's very true.
Don't know, but it's a question that needs to be asked.
Yep.
Why every year on this night why do the forest spirits not come back tomorrow? And if there's no pigs tomorrow, they eat people. It's just tonight.
It's a celestial event.
They only care about tonight. Okay. Are the spirits really spirits, or are they something more malevolent? Do we call them dark evil spirits, but really there's like a shadow demon that's been shackled to that, to something out in the woods? Or
was there like a binding or a ward put on it, and this is the one time you have to do your part of it?
A celestial event where it weakens long enough to get out, right? Maybe it was something less evil, just being opportunistic about the superstitions of the villagers. Maybe goblins learned of this superstition and thought, hey, if we show up, there's free pigs on this night.
Yep.
Same night every year. They put the pigs out. Whatever. They think we're evil spirits. We're just going to take their pigs and eat them.
That's right. Or maybe it was something originally. It got taken care of, but because the festival has become something, a neighboring town comes and takes the pigs because they want to keep the festival going.
Yeah. That was one of the other things we talked about was there was, and again, I don't remember where I heard the story.
Yep.
I don't remember if this is a fictitious story or if this is a factual story. I don't remember if this was a movie or a book,
right.
So I apologize if this sounds very familiar to everybody. I don't know who to attribute this to. But it was the story of a small community where every year everybody had to make a sacrifice of like their finest livestock or just one piece of livestock.
Call a pig, call a sheep, get your best wool.
Right. Your finest cloth or your finest beeswax candle, a bushel of your finest crop, and had to sacrifice them, and mysteriously somewhere else in the village someone would receive a bounty of a fine calf and a bushel of fine crops and a bolt of fine cloth and some beeswax candles and and so it was this it mysteriously just showed up sort of thing where it was the community essentially ritualizing the act of giving to those in need and making sure that everybody in their community was taken care of. And it's nothing much more than a community sharing stuff amongst them. But the fact that it is ritualized and that it is a holiday and it's a specific night, that they do this on, it just makes it really nice,
Yeah, and maybe the people are doing it because the lord of that land would always come, it comes and does the taxation the next day and takes the finest things. So if they say that this is a festival and the festival, has, the god then gives it to who is in most need, the whole community is behind it. And it becomes a thing that now, they can't break that tradition.
Right.
Because it's in honor of the gods, which support you, So wouldn't want to upset them.
Yes, ritualized tax evasion.
That's right. But there's always something to be said for going ahead and creating festivals that support your players.
Oh, yeah.
Like you did that in our game, and
yes,
I freaking love it, that at the end we came up with celebrating the defeat of this troll that had plagued this community for a lot longer than we were there, and it just became a horrific situation by the time we got there. And now it's, instead of, when Crushmaw died, it is now the day known as Crushfall.
Yep, 18th day of second seed every year. Yep. And they had the very first festival that night, when everybody was finally,
able.
Everybody was finally able to get back into their own homes, when there was no longer a troll literally walking around their town square.
Yep.
And they had lights, and they had dancing, and sweet treats, whatever they were able to gather together of their food that wasn't spoiled. But, and the band was out playing and such like that. The bard got in with the band and was helping them out and enhancing things. And it was just a really nice scene for everybody, I think. Yeah. And next year, in-game next year, when the 18th day of second seed rolls back around, you may find yourselves in possession of some invitations to return to the village of Solenshore as honored guests. And I think that's going to be just great to have, knowing that you as the PCs generated that happiness and affected the world in such a way. We do a lot of our adventuring for, treasure and such like that, but honestly, just seeing a bunch of peasants get together and dance and sing and just celebrate, honestly.
Yeah.
Because you did something good for them.
Mm-hmm.
You get to just, even if you don't take part in the celebration, you get to just look at that and go, we did this, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
This was us,
Yeah. And Knox just brought up, like, the idea of how does it change over time? How does, celebrations change? And would there be a chance that, like, maybe the new followers who follow it a different way almost shun the previous followers, because they're doing it wrong, or old followers shun the new ones, And I totally think that could be a thing. I could totally see that in a community where you've got a mixture of old and new traditions and traditionalists.
Yeah, I don't. He uses the word punish. I don't necessarily know that it would be outright punishment necessarily, unless you had like a big schism like you did like in the church,
right.
Where you've got like where it strays into like apostasy. But I would say typically in any society you're going to have that separation between the old conservative-minded,
orthodox almost,
or orthodoxy of going, well, this is the way we did it back in my day, sort of thing, and the newfangled people who say your old ways are outdated, we don't need to do it like that anymore, and we're now it's like this because it's more practical or more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Or
I'm not going to spend 6 hours making stew. Like, that seems ridiculous. First off, I don't eat red meat, and, like, why are we having it for this meal? It has nothing to do with this festival whatsoever.
Well, because we've always made this stew, and we've always made red meat, and your mother stayed up 6 hours, made this stew every single year while you were growing up, so,
Well, I found out that Mom didn't, actually. She bought it Hormel, and, oh, how blasphemy is that? She just did that because she needed to, and that's the kind of things that break those down, even in a single generation to generation. Now you move multiple generations through it, and you move away from the communities that are involved, and everything changes.
Yeah.
I think about Thanksgiving itself. Like, what the vision of what Thanksgiving is outside of our culture, and what foods and things have to be on the table. A turkey has to be on the table. Stuffing has to be on the table. Cranberry has to be on the table. And yet most of us think about it and go, yeah, I mean,
I don't really like turkey. It's kind of dry.
Yeah.
I'd prefer roast beef or something like that.
And so ham sometimes gets substituted in, and then you've got like, well, how do you cook your turkey? Well, we got to cook it the traditional way in the oven. Well, no. There's other ways to cook a turkey.
I just watched a video online. Somebody battered and deep fried their turkey and then basted it in Asian orange turkey.
Oh, I feel what you're saying.
And then served it on a gigantic platter of lo mein noodles.
Ha! That's awesome.
It was, oh God, it looked delectable. It looked absolutely delectable.
And that's the thing is that food is a major thing for everyone because it creates a lasting memory in people's minds. And when alterations of between what you believe it is and what it actually is changes, suddenly now you're thrown off. And that's just food.
Yeah.
That's something we all have to have. Like, well, unless your character has a ring of sustenance where you don't have to eat or drink, at that point now it becomes confusion for them. But always remember that your players are getting that option of being able to feel out the story. So if you throw twists and turns in there too early, it may throw off the meaning. So I would say in cases where you've got something like what Knox is bringing up here, where you've got factions basically breaking up the festival and changing it, unless that's an important part of your world that they need to understand that there are these factions and things that separate them and that it's a strong point, it might be confusing. to the details.
It might be a good way though if you do have player characters asking about the lore behind the festival.
Perfect.
It might be a great way to show the different views in your world on it. To have someone saying, "Oh, well, of course, this is a festival of this and this and this, and we eat this and we do this and whatever," and then have some old codger behind him going like, "Ah, no, back in my day it wasn't any of that. It was this and this and this, and we got up at dawn and we did this and." Nowadays you guys just want to sing and dance or whatever,
Yeah.
But it's a good way to get them asking some questions like, oh, wait, well, hold on a second. Why did you do it that way back in the day? Or, or even just not even have them ask, just have somebody say, like, we did it back in the day because the origination of this holiday was this. And you guys have forgotten all that and turned it into a bunch of singing and dancing.
Yeah.
Or,
you the other thing you could do is propose the you do the different mornings. The orc wakes up on on Blessings Day, and it's like you wake up, the sun is shining, and you feel amazing. You stretch, you find that fresh bowl of water and splash it on your face. Your bones don't creak. You look at your sword shining and glimmering in the dim light cutting through the window. Then you cut over to the bard who is from Solderton or something like that. You're like, it's Blessings Day. You look over, your lute has a broken string. It's dark, it's cold. You can hear the rain outside lingering on the edge of the mountain, waiting to come over and just ruin the day. And everyone has a different opinion of what this day means to them.
Roll me a Constitution saving throw, not to just go back to bed.
Exactly. Like, and then they ask the question, well, why do I hate it so much? Your town was crushed on this day. It was crushed by orcs. They came in by barges, took all your trees, and leveled it. How long ago? Oh, I mean, it was like 1,000 years ago, but I mean, it still happened.
but you remember, because you commemorate it every year.
And you remember the rain. It always rains on Blessings Day. Why the heck do we call it Blessings Day? Oh, you don't call it Blessings Day, but everyone else does because they all got their trees that day.
Yeah.
So,
do you want to hit some questions?
Sure. I think it's a good timing for it.
All right, cool. All right, so Knox in the Box tosses in his question here. In real life, simple holidays like Valentine's Day, for example,
commercial.
Oh, sorry. What?
I said Valentine's Day commercial. Commercializing.
Oh, yeah. Anyways, simple holidays like Valentine's Day, for example, are celebrated by many different countries in many different ways.
Totally.
Would having the fictitious holiday in your game be treated in a similar, regionally differing fashion be more distracting or confusing? I mean, that brings up an interesting point. That, you giving conflicting information about how a holiday is celebrated could be confusing. So I think you need to be careful about how that's done.
I would say you could do something very different, where you could say, this is what the festival is, like how it starts, and then your players could add the flavor. How do you celebrate this festival? At that point, now you have different regional people doing different things.
Yeah. You could absolutely if your group is one of those ones where you can ask for storytelling input on that. Yeah.
I think the game would also help frame that for you. I could see that being done in a more narrative game session. But I mean, if you've got players who really love role playing and inter-party group, throw it at them. Let them come up with how their nation handles Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. But yeah, I don't know that distracting or confusing. I think it adds flavor when you differentiate that.
Yep.
But I think again, you're right to be cautious about it, in that you want to just make sure that you're not giving conflicting information, that you're giving context for why it's different. But once you contextualize it as they don't celebrate it like that here. This is a different country. They have a different perspective on it. It clarifies that really easy. And I don't think it'd be distracting or confusing at all.
And remember that your players aren't all the same. Not all your players are going to be able to keep all of this information going in their head either. So if you see you're losing your players because you're flooding them with world information and that's just not what they need, back it off a little bit.
Yeah.
Just add a little sprinkle here and there. If it's not going in that well for them, don't try and flood it over the top.
Yeah, that's an important point, actually, because I think anytime you start getting into, world-building events, you run the risk of, look at this neat thing that I made, and then it just becomes you kind of lecturing your party with plot exposition.
Or not even World Exposition.
With World Exposition for a half hour, and them kind of going like, okay, I get it. They knit their own scarves. The fringe on them is different colors. It's very important to you, I'm sure. They're scarves. Can we go stab a dragon now?
Exactly.
Yep.
So keep an eye on your players and their interest level in what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
The other one was, should holidays be streamlined for the whole world and your party, or do you think there is merit in storytelling and lore by having the same holiday be treated differently? I would say that is up to you. I would say, as a world builder, be prepared, but at the same time, keep it simple. Keep your world flowing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, in giant air quotes, more realistic to have that holiday differ by region, but honestly, I don't think it needs to be. Mm-mm. I think we're here to tell stories, and if the focus of the story is not that holiday, your players aren't really going to know. Your players are going to notice there was a holiday, but they're not going to notice that it was, regionally different. And so, it kind of goes into what I've always kind of said about, like, making maps of everything and writing all this world building and stuff like that, and knowing, exactly how many blacksmiths are in the town of Kvatch, and nobody needs to know that.
Canon gets done after the book.
Right.
Canonic value happens after the story is told.
So I guess the answer is, yeah, it's technically better to have it regionally, different and stuff like that, but it doesn't need to be.
No.
Keep it simple.
Yep.
And if you just need to say, hey, there's a festival going on, cool.
Yep. So at the buzzer, Overwatch threw in a question. Have you had a holiday or festival in game that you really hit the mark? Was it something you came up with or part of an existing lore?
Yeah.
You did Crush Maw?
I did Crushfall. So once again, what had happened was a troll had decided to essentially take over a town. Just moved in because its lair was no longer viable, so it moved into the boathouse in the village.
Yep.
And of course the villagers couldn't be there anymore because they couldn't fight a troll, so they hired the adventuring party to get rid of it.
Yep.
Hijinks ensued. They ended up killing the troll, and they got their village back. And so the villagers decided that this day that these mighty heroes came in and rescued them from this awful troll would be forever known as Crushfall, because the name of the troll was Crush Maw, and just singing and dancing and such like that. So we're gonna see how that village celebrates it next time that date rolls around.
Yep. Could be totally different.
I've got some ideas.
Okay.
In my pocket, and you guys will be invited back for it to see that. And
I've heard about some good festivals. Like I tried to do one in my game, but it was unfortunately the timing didn't work out originally. Which was the New King Festival of the Gnomes.
Okay.
I kind of gave your guys a flavor of it, but never got into it, and it was the whole idea that the Gnomes don't really... they elect a king based upon their merits of what they do. So you have a new king of the Gnomes based upon their ability to do something for the community.
Yeah.
And the previous king and a group basically appoints them. And there's good reason for it in their society to make sure that the society keeps going. And the whole thing is wrapped around basically retuning the clock that runs everything. But outside of the gates of the Gnome City is a festival where people come because it brings all these different tinkers and crafters and food and fun, and basically brings a huge market space that's not just for the gnomes. And so in that sense, it was a bright festival, bringing in a new season, a new king to wind the clock. And I never really got to play it out as fully as I wanted to in the story, but I kind of gave you guys a flavor where it ended.
Yeah, but it was still memorable too, and it was cool because it did affect the scene. We had some infiltrators that we were essentially trying to chase through that crowd, and because it was a gigantic festival, it really complicated things for us. Where they couldn't, if it were any other day, We'd have known, we would have seen exactly where they went, but there was a huge crowd in the market square, you know?
And it was the outer market that was there, which doesn't normally create. It doesn't get made. So it was like a makeshift market, which is even worse.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, city planning is not what the gnomes do best when it's on the fly. You know?
I was kind of in my mind, I was envisioning the Renaissance Festival on a really busy day, you know?
Very much so. Yeah, super busy, lots of people drinking, eating, buying things, vying for position to see whatever's going on over there. Shoulder to shoulder, no paths to speak of, you know, it's just between carts, you know, as people move. I think the only other one that I really liked was a Venetian style masquerade city event.
Okay.
That was that somebody had written about, where high society and low society all wear masks, and sometimes you have your high nobles who basically still want to be seen as themselves, dress as they do and have masks that are exquisite, so they have their status, but now they can walk amongst the commoners, they get to be seen basically and pawed over, whereas other nobles sometimes will wear fanciful costumes that represent like lust and greed and, you know, and envy and things like that, so that people can come to them and have interaction with them on a common level. And others dress up. So you might have merchants that might play the part of the hierophant, you know, and dress as that. And now it's a fanciful outfit. And even the nobles love that it's something unique. And so they get to see the finest things. But at the same time, some of the commoners get to play. And you get these pairings that happen, like Cinderella-style pairings, that wouldn't normally happen. And things can come of that.
The prince falls in love with a washing wench.
Exactly.
Yep.
Because she had a beautiful mask. And that's just, it's neat kind of things like that I love about good festivals and good holidays that bring the world as a whole flavor. And let your characters walk through those little pieces of flavor. I mean, there's whole stories that are wrapped around just festivals. I mean, I'm not going to say this is a great storyline, but I mean, there's Halloween Town, which is its own movie series. Come on. It's wrapped around Halloween. That's it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
It was... Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a town called Halloween Town, but...
Spoiler alert, I
mean, come on. And then you have all of your, AMC... No, what is it? It's not AMC. It's, the classic girl goes to small town because she has to save X.
Oh, the Hallmark movies?
Hallmark movies, yes. The standard Hallmark movies all follow the same tropey Christmas things. Imagine your characters step into that world.
Yeah.
Like, they're not her or what's going on, but that's happening in the setting. Like, they can watch it happen before them.
I want to real quick before we wrap up.
Sure.
Knox had a really great comment in the live chat. He says the Grinch, but as a D&D quest, giant ogre hates the holiday. Slay him to save it.
Oh, I love that.
I think it's great. I mean, I think you could actually come up with some really realistic reasons why, like, the holiday festivities, all the lights and the noise and the music and the everything would annoy a local monstrous creature.
It comes into town.
And it comes into town to try to stop the holiday.
That's right.
I think that'd be great.
And his heart grew 4 sizes that day. Why? We used it in a large spell, actually.
He says, Knox also says, you never see Fashion Week in D&D with a runway show. Damn shame that is.
I mean,
why not? Why not?
Yeah.
You can see it. You just need a storyteller to write it. Yeah.
That's right. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons for flagrant ridiculousness in D&D just as much as anywhere else.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean,
you can run it like a tune.
The merchants need to show off place to, have a place to show off all their new wares and stuff like that. Why don't you do a new thing? New styles of armor. Can you imagine an armor fashion week?
Oh my God.
Where all the smiths come in and like...
It's the festival of knights. So they're doing like jousting, but really what it's about is the armorers. It has nothing to do with the jousters. It's all
holy cow!
And they sponsor knights.
It's like the International Auto Show for full plate.
Yep.
Oh my God, that'd be so great.
You've got horse people there.
Somebody please put this in your game. I'm giving this all for free to you. You need to put this in your game.
But yeah, you could have special horse traders there who are bringing war horses and other things. I mean, it would be pretty badass.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we do need to wrap up. It's getting about time there. So next week topic, we're going to be resuming our series on encounters. I think this is the last one in the encounter series.
Last one in the miniseries.
So we're going to be talking about things like kind of following up on what we were talking about here with the festivals is mini games, a little out of scope encounters, gambling house things, things like that. So you can find us on Twitter at @ST_conclave, on Instagram at @ST_conclave. Listen to us live every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on mixlr.com/storyteller-conclave. And please join us up on our Discord. Join the discussion. Join the live chat. And toss us some questions. Have us answer them right here on the air for you. You can find our link to Discord on our Twitter as well as on our website at storyteller-conclave.com.
Yes.
StorytellerConclave.com.
Both will actually get you there. We'd like to thank our Patreon members, Nox, Sam, the Arcane Asylum, Sparkle Motion, and all of you other members out there who have been helping us keep this going every month. We thank you. We are thankful for you. Our pre-show music is from Arcane Anthems. You can find that at patreon.com/arcaneanthems. I highly recommend them, and he put up some more parody music if you're interested in it. The intro music was Beyond the Warriors by Geefrog. You can find that at geefrogmusic.weebly.com. We are thankful that he created that. It's a wonderful piece, and we enjoy it. And our outro music is Only Our Footprints in the Sand by Midair Machine. You can find that at soundcloud.com/midairmachine/tracks.
We want to thank our families, as always, Vicky and Sean. We love you so much. All of our friends who've sat with us at our tables over the years to give us these great stories to tell. And you, every single one of our listeners. We love you. Good night.
Good night.